Hey everyone, buckle up, because today's deep dive is a wild ride
Yeah, wild.
through the intriguing,
Definitely intriguing.
and let's be honest, sometimes kind of ruthless,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
world of power dynamics,
Wait.
dissecting the 48 laws of power.
That's right. But hold on, before you start picturing, like Machiavellian schemes and shady backroom deals and all that,
Right, right.
think of this book less as, I don't know, less like a manual for ruthless domination
Okay.
and more like, how do I put it? It's more like a decoder ring, yeah, for understanding this subtle dance of influence that's happening all around us every single day.
Okay, I like that. A decoder ring for social strategy.
Uh,
So we're not talking about like world domination here
no,
necessarily.
not necessarily.
More like understanding the rules of the game so we can, navigate it with, shall we say, a little more finesse.
Exactly. And this book, well, it's packed. I mean, packed with fascinating insights. Yeah, sometimes, a little unsettling. So, are you ready to unpack some of these compelling laws of power?
Absolutely. Hit me with your best shot. What's
Yeah.
what's the first rule we should be aware of?
Well, let's start with a principle, something that's as relevant like in the halls of power as it is in our daily lives. Never outshine the master.
Ooh, that sounds juicy. Tell me more.
It's all about, being mindful of the ego.
Right.
That delicate balance of ego in any relationship, really, where influence is at play. And this isn't about, dimming your own light or anything like that.
Right.
It's more about strategically positioning yourself
Okay.
so that your brilliance, it elevates those in authority instead of, making them feel threatened or anything.
So it's less about being a brown nose or more about being strategic about how you present your ideas
Yes,
or accomplishment.
precisely. Think of it like a game of chess.
Okay.
Sometimes the most powerful moves are the ones that seem, subtle on the surface.
Right.
But they put your opponent, or in this case, maybe your boss or whoever, in a position to shine. You know what I mean?
Okay, I'm starting to see how this works. Do you have a good example? History is full of these power dynamics, right?
Absolutely. Imagine you're Galileo in the 16th century, right?
Sure.
And you're trying to secure the patronage of, the powerful Medici family.
Big time.
Now, you could bombard them with all these, complex astronomical theories, but that might make them feel, I don't know, maybe a little inadequate.
I can see how that might backfire a little bit, yeah. They're the ones with the power, after all.
Exactly. So what does Galileo do?
What does he do?
He presents Cosimo II of Medici with this, personalized celestial map highlighting these four newly discovered moons orbiting Jupiter.
Wait, wasn't that a major scientific discovery? He just gave it away like that.
He did, but there's a twist. These celestial bodies, they weren't just any moons. They became known as the Medicean stars, like a symbol of the family's power and legacy, literally woven into the fabric of the cosmos.
Whoa. So instead of directly outshining the Medici, Galileo found a way to make them shine even brighter by aligning his own brilliance with their ambitions. That is some next-level strategizing.
It's genius, right?
Yeah.
And it worked. Galileo got himself a prestigious position as court philosopher and mathematician, all because he understood the art of indirect influence.
That's an incredible story. It makes you wonder how often, we miss opportunities to, build influence because we're too focused on showing off, our own brilliance instead of what the other person truly values.
It's a common pitfall. We live in a culture that often celebrates individual achievement above all else. But the masters of power, they understand that true influence comes from understanding the needs and desires of those around them.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. Speaking of understanding human nature, what other insights does this book offer about navigating those often murky waters?
Well, it brings up an interesting point about presence, or rather, the power of strategic absence. The law states use absence to increase respect and honor.
Wait, didn't we just talk about making your presence known to those in power? Now you're telling me to disappear. I'm confused.
I understand the confusion. It does seem kind of counterintuitive. But think of it this way. Have you ever noticed how things become even more desirable when they're scarce? That,
Yeah.
Limited edition sneaker, that sold out concert, everybody wants to go.
Or that friend who's always busy but somehow makes you feel even more special when they do make time for you.
Yes,
I get it.
exactly. This law is all about understanding that constant availability can sometimes, diminish your perceived value.
Mhm.
The 48 Laws of Power even uses the example of Queen Elizabeth I to illustrate this.
Queen Elizabeth I, the queen of playing hard to get. Tell me everything.
Oh, she was a master. Elizabeth III, she knew, oh yeah, she knew how to keep those powerful men on their toes. She'd expertly, like, weave between flirting and then withdrawing,
Oh, wow.
sparking desire but never quite, satisfying it.
So it's like she was creating this aura of mystery and intrigue around herself,
Yes,
making her the ultimate prize.
precisely. It's fascinating how this principle of, strategic absence, it applies not just to romance, right? But to like so many areas of life. Think about how companies build hype for a product launch, right? They're very careful about how much information they put out there.
Yeah.
Or even how you craft that perfect text message reply, right?
Oh, yeah?
Not too eager, not too distant.
Totally. Okay, I'm starting to see how this all ties together. It's like this underlying current of strategy influencing everything,
Yeah.
from our personal relationships to the boardroom.
That's exactly it. And speaking of strategy, let's dive into a law that's all about mastering the art of perception. Always say less than necessary.
Ooh, this one sounds intriguing, especially after that whole Queen Elizabeth I strategy session. Less is more, huh?
You got it. The book argues that, in a world that's just saturated with noise, this ability to command attention with carefully chosen words, it's powerful. Think of it this way. The more you talk, the more commonplace you appear.
Right.
But by choosing your words carefully and speaking only when you have something, truly valuable to say, you actually increase your perceived value.
So it's not about being silent all the time, but rather about being strategic with our words. Kind of like, I don't know, like how a well-placed silence in a song can make the next note hit even harder.
Yes, a perfect analogy. And speaking of perfectly placed silences, the 48 Laws of Power uses the example of King Louis XIV, the Sun King himself.
Okay.
He was notorious for saying less than necessary.
Okay, I need to hear this story. What did he do?
Picture this. King Louis XIV is holding court, right?
Okay.
And his advisors are, like, presenting him with some long-winded proposal.
Right.
They're droning on, but Louis, he just listens. Intent, completely silent.
I can only imagine the advisors like sweating under his gaze, wondering what he's thinking.
Right. And then just when everyone is like about to burst with anticipation, he utters a simple, "I shall see," turns on his heel, and exits the room.
No way. He just leaves them hanging like that.
Oh.
That is cold-blooded.
And utterly brilliant. This calculated ambiguity, it kept everyone guessing, just fueling all sorts of speculation and power plays in his absence. But most importantly, it reinforced this image of him, as a ruler of great authority, great mystique.
Wow, talk about power moves. It
Yeah.
makes you realize how much, I don't know, we overexplain ourselves in this day and age.
Right.
Everyone feels the need to like constantly justify every thought, every action.
Yeah.
Maybe a little strategic silence wouldn't hurt.
It's definitely something to consider. And while we're on the topic of like self-preservation and navigating these tricky situations, the 48 Laws of Power has a particularly, shall we say, strategic piece of advice. Conceal your mistakes. Have a scapegoat.
Oh, that sounds a little Machiavellian, even for this book. Tell me they're not seriously suggesting throwing someone under the bus to save your own skin.
Well, it's not quite as simple as that. The book acknowledges that everyone makes mistakes, right? It's part of being human. But those who are truly adept at navigating these power dynamics, they know how to, deflect blame and maintain that spotless image.
Okay, I'm listening. How does that work exactly?
The book provides a fascinating, if morally ambiguous, example from ancient China. We're talking about Cao, this powerful general during the Han Dynasty. He was facing a potential mutiny among his troops.
Oh, wow.
Had to act quickly to preserve his authority.
Okay, high stakes. What did he do?
Well, instead of taking responsibility for the unrest, which might have, fueled the flames of rebellion even more, he very cleverly shifted the blame onto a subordinate, claiming this person was the source of discontent among the ranks.
Wow, that's some next-level maneuvering. So he essentially created a scapegoat to protect his own reputation, maintain control.
Precisely. It's a classic power move, but one that definitely raises some ethical questions.
You can say that again.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that while, the 48 Laws of Power offers these fascinating insights into the dynamics of influence, it's up to us to decide how we're going to apply these principles in our own lives.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the tools, but also, being mindful of the ethical implications for sure.
Well said. Okay, so we've talked about like mastering our presence, our words, and even our, public image. But what about our emotions? I'm feeling this book has a thing or two to say about that.
You're right on the money. The 48 Laws of Power places a huge emphasis on emotional intelligence, especially in these high-pressure situations. It argues that letting our emotions get the best of us can lead to, rash decisions, ultimately weaken our position.
That makes sense. After all, haven't we all said or done things in the heat of the moment that we later regretted?
Exactly. One of the laws that really highlights this is win through your actions, never through argument.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's about choosing your battles wisely and focusing on getting results rather than getting caught up in these heated debates.
You got it. The book argues that even if you win an argument, right, you often create resentment in the process. And that can, damage relationships, hinder your progress in the long run.
It's like that saying, you can win the battle but lose the war.
Precisely. It reminds me of the story of Michelangelo. That time he was commissioned to create a sculpture for this wealthy patron.
Oh, yes. I think I remember this one.
Yeah.
Wasn't there something about the patron not liking the nose of the sculpture?
You're exactly right. The patron thought the nose was too big and kept harping on about it. Now, Michelangelo, he could have argued with him, defending his artistic vision and all that.
Yeah, arguing with your patron rarely ends well when you're the artist.
Exactly. So what does Michelangelo do? He invites the patron back to his studio, climbs up the scaffolding, with his chisel in hand, and pretends to chisel away at the nose, letting a bit of dust fall down. Right.
Wait, so he didn't actually change anything?
Not a bit. But the patron, seeing the progress and feeling like his opinion mattered, was completely satisfied.
Oh, wow.
Michelangelo understood that sometimes the most effective action is the one that, subtly changes someone's perception without them even realizing it.
That is brilliant. It's like a master class in managing expectations, navigating these tricky personalities.
Exactly. And this law is especially relevant in today's world where it's so easy to get sucked into online arguments,
Oh, tell me about it.
social media drama.
Everyone's a keyboard warrior these days.
Right. But this law reminds us that sometimes the most powerful move is to, just rise above the fray, choose our battles wisely, and focus on achieving our goals through, strategic action rather than this endless debate.
Well said. It's about being intentional with our energy and focusing on what truly matters. Okay, so we've talked about choosing our battles wisely, but what about mastering our reactions when we're faced with, shall we say, less than ideal behavior?
That's a great question, and it leads us perfectly to another crucial law of power. Never react to anger, wait for the emotional tide to turn.
Ooh, I like this one already. It speaks to my soul as someone who's definitely been known to, fire off a heated email in the heat of the moment.
We've all been there. But as this law so wisely points out, anger is a powerful manipulator, and it often clouds our judgment.
It's true. When you're angry, it's hard to think straight.
Exactly. This law is all about recognizing that anger is often this, fleeting emotion. And if we can just remain calm and collected while the other person's, losing their cool, we gain a significant advantage.
So it's like being the eye of the storm. You let the other person's emotions swirl around you while you remain, centered and in control.
Yes. It's about weathering the storm and then the moment is right, making your move.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you have any historical examples of this law in action? Because my brain is ready for another juicy story.
Oh, I have a good one. Have you ever heard of the Warring States period in ancient China?
Vaguely. It rings a bell, but I definitely need a refresher.
Well, during this time, there were all these different states vying for power, right? And one of the most successful rulers was King Gujian of Yu.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So King Gujian, he found himself in a bit of a predicament. He had just suffered this crushing defeat at the hands of his arch-rival, King Fuchai of Wu. Gujian and his men were, captured. It looked like all hope was lost.
Oh, no, that's awful. What did he do?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of, raging against his captor or giving into despair, Gujian chose a different path. He feigned subservience to King Fuchai, pretending to be completely humbled by his defeat.
Wow, that's some next-level emotional control right there.
It gets even better. For years, Gujian endured, humiliation, hardship, all the while secretly plotting his revenge. He knew that King Fuchai was this proud and easily provoked ruler,
Right.
so he bided his time, just waiting for the right moment to strike.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What happened next?
Finally, after years of, patient planning, strategic maneuvering, Gujian saw his opportunity. King Fuchai had grown, complacent and arrogant. His kingdom had weakened from within. Gujian seized the moment, launching this surprise attack that caught Fuchai completely off guard.
He actually managed to turn the tables after all those years.
He did. And it was his remarkable self-control, his ability to, master his emotions in the face of adversity that ultimately led to his triumph.
That is an incredible story.
Yeah.
It's like something out of a movie.
It really is. And it's a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest display of strength is not, brute force,
Right.
but rather this ability to control our impulses, resist the urge to react in anger, and wait for the opportune moment to make our move.
That's a powerful message. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from mastering our presence to strategically deploying silence to even outmaneuvering our enemies. But I have a feeling we've only scratched the surface of the 48 Laws of Power, right?
You're absolutely right. This book it's a treasure trove of strategic insights, and we still have plenty more to uncover.
Well, I, for one, am ready to dive back in.
Yeah.
So what other wisdom does this book hold for those of us seeking to navigate this intricate dance of power and influence?
Okay, so we've uncovered the art of strategic absence,
Right.
mastered the power of silence,
Yes.
and even learned how to, navigate the choppy waters of anger and blame.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. What other power plays does this book have in store for us? Well, let's talk about legacy.
Okay.
The 48 Laws of Power has some fascinating things to say about those who came before us,
Right.
and how their legacies can either, inspire us or,
Yeah.
in some cases, become a trap.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. What do you mean by a trap?
Well, one of the laws that really stood out to me is this: avoid stepping into a great man's shoes.
Okay, that makes sense. If you're constantly trying to, fill someone else's shoes, you're always going to be compared to them.
Right.
It's easy to fall short.
Right.
Right.
Precisely. The book argues that if you're truly, striving for greatness,
Right.
you need to carve your own path,
Yeah.
even if it means, breaking away from tradition or challenging the status quo a little bit.
It's about forging your own identity
Yes.
and making your own unique contribution to the world,
Yes.
not just trying to replicate someone else's success.
Exactly. And the book uses the example of Alexander the Great,
Okay.
who, despite being, the son of a powerful and respected king,
Right.
deliberately chose to distinguish himself from his father's legacy.
Wow.
He understood that trying to outdo a legend, it's a losing battle.
That's such an important reminder, especially for those of us who, maybe we're following in the footsteps of successful parents
Right.
or mentors. It's easy to feel that pressure to live up to their expectations, but ultimately it's about finding your own voice and defining success on your own terms.
Absolutely. And this idea of, forging your own path,
Yeah.
it leads perfectly into another fascinating law: assume formlessness.
Formlessness. Okay, now you're just messing with me.
I know, right?
What does that even mean?
It sounds a bit abstract,
It does.
but it's actually a brilliant metaphor for adaptability.
Okay.
Think about it. In a world that's constantly changing,
Yeah.
clinging to these rigid plans, it makes you inflexible,
Yeah.
vulnerable, right?
Right.
But if you can be like water,
Okay.
adapting to any situation, flowing around obstacles,
Ooh.
you become almost unstoppable.
Wow, I love that analogy. It's like Bruce Lee's famous quote, "Be like water making its way through cracks. Do not be assertive, but adjust to the object, and you shall find a way around or through it."
Exactly. It's about recognizing that true power lies not in, brute force or rigid control, but in the ability to adapt,
Right.
evolve, and even embrace the unexpected.
It's about being comfortable with uncertainty and seeing change not as a threat, but as an opportunity for, growth and innovation.
Precisely. And, that's what I find, I don't know, so fascinating about the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah.
It's not just like a handbook for, ambition.
Right.
It's a framework for understanding these subtle forces that
Yeah.
shape our interactions and influence, really, the course of our lives.
It's like you said at the beginning of our deep dive. It's a decoder ring for understanding the world around us.
It is.
And while some of these laws, maybe they seem a bit ruthless
Right.
or even morally ambiguous, I think they ultimately challenge us to think critically about how power operates
Yes.
in all aspects of our lives,
Yeah.
from our personal relationships to our careers to, the broader social systems that we're a part of.
Absolutely. And ultimately, I think, the greatest power lies not in manipulating others,
Right.
but in mastering ourselves.
Oh, I like that.
Our emotions, our perceptions, our responses to this, ever-changing dynamics of life.
Well said. The 48 Laws of Power,
Hmm.
it's definitely a book that sparks a lot of reflection and even a bit of healthy self-examination.
Yeah.
So to our listeners, as you navigate your own path to influence and impact,
Mm.
remember, knowledge is power.
It is.
And understanding these laws is just the first step.
Right.
The real mastery comes from deciding how you'll apply them.
Yes.
Ethically, strategically, and always with a keen awareness of the interconnectedness of it all.
Beautifully put. It's been a pleasure diving into this fascinating topic with you today.
Likewise. And to our listeners, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep diving deep.